Hello and welcome to the Last Word on Spurs. We are, of course, your multi-award winning Tottenham Hotspur podcast. We are back. We are steering you through in these final few days of the January transfer window. Been pretty dry, hasn't it? Pretty dry January, helping spice things up and put some liquid in the cup. God, where is that analogy going? That's a crackers one for you. We're joined by three sensational returning guests to Last Word on Spurs. Back alongside us. Next time you see him, he'll be in some kind of hot climate. I warn you, potentially, maybe. Jonathan Hammy is back on the show. John, lovely to have you here. We're also joined by Ian Lubin, fresh from the Spurs 5, where Marlon tried to get a word in, eventually, and did. Also back on the show, our favourite Irishman in the house. We've got the superb Dave from the Irish Hotspur with us here, as we, like I say, take you through in these final few days of this January transfer window, where we're all hoping Tottenham are going to pull a rabbit out the hat. The only concern at this point is it might actually be a rabbit, not a player. That's where Tottenham have got to so far. In terms of this show and what you'll be expecting to come, we'll be guiding you through, of course, as well to Man City at the weekend. Is there any way that there's confliction in the house as to who we want to win that game? We shall see. We'll be talking about the fact Tottenham tried to sign Semenyo. You hear that one? They're trying. Don't worry about signing. We're trying. Let's open with the guys. Let's open with the superb Jonathan Hammy to kick us off here on this Last One on Spurs. Guys, for us out as always. You can like, hype, subscribe to the show. That would be greatly appreciated. Johnny, we'll start on the high point, and it could go a nosedive after this. We're seeking our 10th Premier League double over the boys in Sky Blue come this weekend, as both Spurs and City return to domestic action on the back of their respective wins in the Champions League. Just want to ask you, fan mood on what we are approaching now, the final hours of the transfer window in reality. How are you feeling going into these couple of final days?
Listen, I was buzzing. I was absolutely buzzing Wednesday. But it's subsided now. We're Friday now. And, this new ambition, the ambition of the ball to bring someone in. We're hearing stories of, we tried, we really liked Semenyo. I really like Margot Robbie. Doesn't mean it's going to happen, right? It's fantasy stuff, right? I'm not interested in that. Let's stick to reality, right? We ain't dining at the first sitting of the transfer window market, right? We have got our nose pressed to the Harrods window, but unfortunately we're in the middle aisle of Lidl, right? Looking for a bargain bucket pickup, right? This isn't the club. This isn't the club, Ricky. This isn't the club that I fell in love with.
Yeah.
We're on I feel like I'm going downhill on a bobsleigh and there's no stopping it. Honestly, I'm really peed off right now. I didn't expect massive signings, but I expected us to get creative. Remember, okay, this isn't like Daniel. This is the new Enoch. And we heard against West Ham before West Ham. We have intentions. We know what's wrong with the club and we're going to address it. Well, how are you going to address it? Are you talking to it? Well, I mean, what are you doing? What are you doing? We're at the midnight hour now. Thomas Frank asked for early signings. We're day 30. Day 30. Yes, sorry, I had to check where I was.
I know. It's been a long month.
30. We're day 30, and there's like tumbleweed blowing through the training ground, waiting. And all I can say is it better be worth the wait, because if it isn't, I think things are going to get quite ugly. I'm not suggesting I'm going to get ugly, but it's disappointing. It's disappointing. Ambition. That's all you ask.
Yeah. I mean, we keep saying this with a lot of the journalists that we have on here, that it did feel a bit bizarre. We asked for communication from the hierarchy, but then you get that communication mid-window to suggest that we're trying to strengthen the squad. We're up in the wage structure. Tottenham and timing are just two things you just can't really make up in this world. Dave, let's bring you in. Love to see you back on the show. Look, Spurs, we are winless in 5 in the Premier League, but many would argue that we're coming up against one of the teams that we love to play in Manchester City. And for 2 seasons out of the last 3, there maybe is a confliction for some as to how they're approaching this one. But I think it's fair to say, given our status in the Premier League right now, this team needs to win games. Before we come on to that in more detail and where we are in this transfer window, Dave, what's your current mood going into these final 48, 72 hours of a January transfer window that feels as dry as dry January has really been for a lot of people out there. They've tried to keep to dry January.
Yeah, look, usually people opt into dry January. With Spurs, they sort of just force it on us, to be brutally honest with you. But look, when it comes to the transfer window, this is why, there's got to be a lot more gung-ho in the summer transfer windows, because you shouldn't be in the January transfer window looking to fix 5-6 problems like we are the last couple of seasons. Because the January transfer window is notoriously a difficult market to operate in, because you've only got 1 month compared to 3 months in the summer. You look at clubs, if you're going in for a player, they're very reluctant to let their player leave unless they've got a player lined up. And that happens 5-6 times down the line. So it's a very difficult market to operate in, to get the right players in to fix your problems. And the problem we have, and I think something that maybe no one's factoring in, is who wants to come to Tottenham right now of a certain caliber that's going to fix this problem. We can't do what we done last January and bring in a load of youngsters expecting them to fix our problems. And I think Thomas Frank alluded to something similar today in the press conference, where he sort of said that we can't go down that route. It's got to be a player of a certain quality that's going to enhance the squad. If not, you make your summer business a lot more difficult. So, to be honest with you, I think that's already soundbite sort of maybe dampening down the end of this window. And I think Spurs have tried. I just don't think there's a lot of interest to come here. And I know everyone's screaming out for a striker or a winger. Yeah. But if you're a striker or a winger, like Semenyo's case, why would you want to come to Tottenham Hotspur right now when Frank hasn't improved anyone across that forward line? And when some of the signings we've made, and a lot of their reputations have drastically dropped off since joining Tottenham Hotspur. Like, there's no wonder why Semenyo picked Man City. A, because the ambition in the football club, he knows he's going to be in for trophies. But also B, Pep Guardiola is a guy that's going to enhance his career, enhance him as a player. So there are all these factors weighing in at Tottenham Hotspur right now. There's no wonder why a lot of the players of certain caliber don't want to come here or don't want to sign on the dotted line and see Tottenham as the future. Because before, we were sort of that mid-gap between, other teams, and Tottenham was used as a pathway to get to the top teams. But right now, with the situation we've been in the last few years, our best players are finding it hard to get out of here. So that's even more of a reason why a lot of these players are not going to sign on the dotted line, because Tottenham are regressing. They're no longer seen as that steady club and that stepping stone. So for all them reasons alone, this is why this January transfer window is very difficult. But it sums up how much of a mess we're in. And the fact that we're in this January market looking for so many players to solve problems is an indictment of how bad the board have messed up.
I get all your points you're making there, Dave. I suppose a lot of people look at the situation, like Lubo has said many times on this show, that Spurs, we're not an elite club. We're still a big club. And there's still teams out there that are still doing business despite the perilous position that they find themselves in. And in terms of Spurs' position right now, look, we know, as was the case with Ange during his second season at Tottenham, really they continue to paper over the Premier League cracks with, of course, their European form, which, to be fair, has been something of a degree of joy this season, despite how painful the Premier League campaign has been. And we've been discussing a lot, again, with a lot of the jokes that we had on the show, Lubo, coming over to you, that maybe this last month and that pressure growing on Thomas Frank maybe has been a distraction potentially in terms of the window, because they're unsure whether this manager should be staying, should be going. The fan pressure has been growing. Obviously, you've been to a lot of the away games this season and seen that pressure up close and personal. What's your gauge, Lubo, going into these final few days of the window? Are you surprised, I suppose, is the question around Tottenham? Because can you be surprised these days with Tottenham and the need to do business, despite it being, as Dave says, a difficult window to do it? But I still go back on the point. There's still clubs out there that are still doing business. There still are clubs doing business that are actually in a worse position than Spurs. I'm talking globally, not just Premier League wise. What's your gauge on it for you?
I think we've had some poor director of footballs over the years. Lang is up with them, I think, with Baldini. Really, I have no faith in him at all.
And it looks like, just to be clear, Lubo, don't you come back in there, it looks like at the moment it is Johan Lang flying solo now to the end of the window, because Fiorentina, and I'm not alleged anything here, they've done 3 deals. Who's done those 3 deals for Fiorentina? That's all I'm going to say. Lubo, carry on.
Of course, if I don't laugh, I'll cry. I just think it's got to that point. In fact, you could even think you could throw in conspiracy theories. They're talking about winning trophies. Someone's probably had a chat with them about when we were in the second division in 1977, 78, and how exciting it was. And Glenn Hoddle's last-minute free kick at Mansfield that got us a point that ultimately got us promotion, and Steve Perryman's 86th minute goal against Hull in the last home game that helped us get through. And I just despair with them, to be honest. I think it's the blinds. I think the family, that there's no football There's no football input of any substance on the board. So you've got the blind leading the blind, which I think is Vinay. Hopeless. I really thought he was going to do a good job. He started off with great communication. He's number 2. He's not number 1. He can't cope. He's flailing badly. I mean, someone throw him a life jacket and get rid of him. Seriously, he had one proper decision to make when Paratici came back, and that was to actually make one of them the number 1 out of those 2. Failed to do that. Didn't want to upset anybody. That's not how a number 1 behaves. Number 1 has a clear vision, clarity, knows exactly what he wants. You're my man. You run it. You run the first team. You sort out bringing in kids like Lang with Bergvall, and that's what he should have done. Bridges gone now. This guy's come in. I mean, it's a complete and total farce. I don't want to hear about the failures. Everybody knows Spurs went for Semenya. Don't need to hear it.
Yeah,
he's not going to come to us. This is the result. Again, always say, ENIC have killed the club over the last 25 years in terms of the importance, the standing. They've diminished it, and we can't even get we're at the point where we got a good player from Bournemouth, very good player from Bournemouth, isn't interested in us. Just doesn't even consider us. It was a bit like Mwani, when he had a choice of United, Juventus, and Spurs in January of last year. And to be honest with you, you can see that he doesn't really want to be at the club.
No.
And he proved that with his choice a year ago. So the whole thing's a farce. Maybe they're waiting but maybe they're going to see the season through with Frank. Don't see any major signings. They had 4 months to sort out their targets. It was interesting. I was listening to Paul O'Keefe the other day saying that they had 5 targets for left wing and all of them were unavailable. Well, they're not targets if they're unavailable, are they? I mean, that's just ridiculous. And this shows you how unprofessional this club is. If what Paul said is correct, that's a joke. It's an absolute joke that they're looking at 5 players that aren't available for varying reasons. The club don't want to sell them or they're injured, like Fofana and Savinho. Whole thing's an absolute farce. It's the only thing that's cheered me up that the performances against Dortmund and Frankfurt thought were both very, very good performances. This is more like the Spurs I want to see. You've got players that are starting to come through, and for me, I think he will have to make do with the players he's got. I don't see Andy Robertson joining unless Roma come up, at the last minute with a left back. And maybe they'll go for Sterling. That's easy for them. Guys out of contract, no transfer fee, nice and easy, an opportunity, and that's all Spurs are. When it comes to transfers, it's all about opportunities. It's ridiculous. It's just they've just brought the level of the club down over 25 years. It's just the sooner they go, the better.
That's because we don't have the pull factor, though. Just quickly, like you look at the signings we made on the team, Neat Thomas Frank. Paulinho wanted out of Bayern to come and play regular minutes ahead of a World Cup. Conor Gallagher came this January out of Atletico because he wants to play regular minutes ahead of a World Cup. Mwani had no other options but Tottenham left on deadline day. And Simmons, once Chelsea didn't pull the trigger on him, he ended up at Tottenham Hotspur. We don't have the pull anymore to sign these sort of players. We can't lure them in with trophies. And also, a lot of them don't want to come and play under Frank. There has to be a massive question asked. Why Wiesa went to Newcastle, didn't want to continue on under Frank? Why Mbuemo went to Man United, who were in a worse position than us in the summer, didn't want to come and play under Frank? Why the other guy went to Arsenal, didn't want to come under Frank? Everything is telling us since last summer, we don't have that pull factor to lure in the players that are going to pull us out of this mess.
I hear you, Dave, on that point. I mean, look, the thing about it is not to go and compare Ange and Frank, because we don't need to do that on this show. It's not about that. But obviously, the wording was from Ange. He spoke to a lot of the players, and upon joining, he's like, look, I want you to come here and win trophies. The worrying thing would be the message it feels from the football clubs. I want you to come here and try and get us in the top 4. That messaging is a definite worry. I do want to come on to an update in terms of where we are in this transfer window. I'm going to kick over to Johnny in just a second to do that. We are having some news come through to us here at this point in the show that's come through to us as of this second is that Dane Scarlett has gone off on loan to Hibernian until the end of the season. Now, quite interestingly, we're now exactly around a year ago that Dane came off the bench to score the opener in a pivotal match on our run to the Europa League final. Now, at that time, it felt like a pivotal moment in the trajectory of his career because I think the feeling had always been he's a capable player, but it felt like at that point, mainly, possibly, this was his moment to shine. And there have been calls from this season to get more football. Since then, that moment, he's played just 67 minutes of first-team football. And I know for many out there that do follow the youth, the likes of John that we've got obviously association with at Lily White Rose, a really good friend of mine. And there's a lot of people that feel he's been criminally underused given our injury issues. And, maybe many might look at this loan as a last chance saloon, but what does it say, Johnny, to come over to you? Because we're going to get an update on Lookman as well with you as well, that someone like Dane Scarlett, who is one of the very few now recognised forwards now left in the building that actually, as far as I'm aware, isn't injured, they're sending him out on loan. Now, you could look at it two ways. You could look at it thinking, well, maybe they're going to bring a forward in. Or two, you think this is utter negligence, given the fact that we've got players dropping like flies. What side do you sit on? Are you surprised by that?
Look, I'm not surprised, guys. Look, we have this romantic notion when we look at the youth. I watch the youth a lot, not as much as John at Lily White Rose, that's for sure. But I've always had a keen interest in it for as long as I can remember. For me, this clamour, Dane must start. I remember when Richie was having a little bit of a bad patch. Dane must start. Dane must start. I'm sorry. Look, okay, there are levels. Nice kid. Couldn't even get a start at Portsmouth, okay? He's not at this level, right? Simple. I just, that's the brutal fact. He's not.
Do you think that, John, by the fact we're letting him go, though, is that any way you feeling a bit more optimistic?
I don't have a problem with it. No, I don't. I'll tell you why. Because, look, why isn't a championship club coming in for him? Why has he gone to Hibernian? Mikey Moore's like 18, just 18 years of age. He's playing for Glasgow Rangers, right? He's going to play for Hibs.
Yeah.
No, I'm sorry. Look, I hope he does really well. I hope he has a really good career. He'll have a football career, no two ways about it. But I don't believe he's at this level. So I won't mourn it. I don't think it adds anything to the squad or takes away from anything from the squad. Maybe they looked at, who knows? Maybe they looked at Mason Melia and thought he looks more promising. I don't know. I can't put my finger on that. But I've never thought personally that he was of the right level. I mean, right now, Troy Parrott, if you had a buyback clause on Troy Parrott, who we let go for 2.5p, I mean, I think he scored 20 goals this season. I'm not saying he's the answer.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying.
Troy Parrott is better than Dane Scarlett, right? I think we can agree on that. And I think it's just mismanagement of some of our players. I mean, look at Manchester City, Chelsea. When they get rid of a player, there's a myriad of clauses to bring a player. Should he go out on loan or should we sell him on the cheap? That if he starts to show the promise that we've nurtured since 8-9 years of age, we can bring him back. That's what we should be doing. He's not a Lookman, right? I mean,
just sticking on him. Let me just bring it over to you, John, and you can come back on him, and then we're going to go around the boys as well here. Lookman, from what we understand now, I know you've liked a lot. The other thing I would say is that what should be a red flag to maybe some people out there is the fact that this guy was being touted around on deadline day as you guys were in the summer. No one took him. He's now closing in on a move to Fenerbahce, where they're set to sign the player for around, this has been reported, 40 million euros plus add-ons, and that negotiators entered the final stages following a recent meeting between the football clubs. They just need to iron out now bank guarantees and payment terms before this deal gets over the line. I know, Johnny, you've been clamouring for this one for a long, long time, but by the fact that no Premier League club has come in for him, what does that tell us? Is there a red flag in this guy as to why no Premier League club has gambled on him? What do you make of this? Because he looks like he's moving on now off to the Turkish league.
Look, there were clubs that were interested in him. Juventus, Inter Milan, there was other clubs interested in him, but they couldn't agree a fee with Atalanta. And Atalanta were adamant that the fee that they wanted. Look, for me, I think most people look at Ademola Lookman and look at his career at Everton and what have you when he was a really young kid. I think he's got something about him. What he has got, he's got pace, he's got power, he's aggressive, he's strong. And right now, in a Premier League that's all about physicality, pace, and power, I believe right now is exactly what Spurs need right now. He's going out there to Fenerbahce on a £1.5 million loan. I mean, what, we can't even compete for that. I heard, the no dickhead policy, and he has had a couple of run-ins with the managers. But for me, I'd take him. He's strong down that left side. He can play through the middle. Yep. Is he perfect? No. But look at some of the signings we've made. They're not perfect either. No. But the truth of the matter is, Turkish football had no money, has sadly had an influx of money from Saudi Arabia and Russia. And now that they're competing with players like Victor Osimhen and Ademola Lookman. And when you look at what we're doing, diddly squat, 100% I would take him without question.
Okay, well, look, it looks like he's on his way potentially to Fenerbahce. I'm now hearing there's a suggestion as well that Atletico Madrid might also be making a late ploy for him. We've got breaking Daniel Levy news, which must mean Lubo is on this panel. So we have to come over to Lubo in the Last Word on Spurs headquarters where the alarms are going off right now. And only Lubo can unlock the code for this one. Lubo, the news that's coming through to us right now about Daniel Levy, quite interesting. This is coming to us here right at this point of the show. This is from Bloomberg, who have been quite reliable in their sources around Tottenham and Daniel Levy, obviously speaking to them in the past. That is that former Tottenham chairman, Daniel Levy, is believed to be in talks about selling almost his 30% stake in the ownership of Spurs for approximately $1 billion. And that'll be to a consortium including the Hong Kong businessman NG Wing Fei. The consortium is comprised of Asian business tycoons. It's not the first time, actually, that we've had the link to the Hong Kong businessman NG Wang Fei. Lubo, thoughts on that for you? The fact that it now looks like Daniel Levy is going to be selling almost 30% his ownership in Spurs. What do you make of that? Did I cut out there? Sorry, did I cut out there?
You did.
Did I cut out? Sorry, my apologies. Carry on, Lubo. Sorry, carry on.
So the club's valued at just under $4 billion, basically. So you're looking at, 3.3? Great, terrific. No, it's slightly under 4. Good. Let him go. That'll be his 30% gone, and then hopefully the Lewises will sell their 70% of the 87% that the two of them own.
Should fans look at that, Lubo? Is that a good thing? The fact that they've now got Daniel potential to sell that, is it a benefit? The fact that 30%, Johnny's shaking his head there. We'll come back round to Johnny. But for you, Lubo, is that a good or a bad thing? Do you think now that Daniel Levy's selling that stake for you?
I want 100% of the shares sold. So it's a start for me. It's a start. We've got to get people. We've got to get people in that want success for this club.
100%.
Because not only are we drifting, we start drifting. You start going down because everyone else is overtaking us. So for me, that's good news. There's no point him being out of the club holding 30%. That 30% is doing nothing. It might as well do something.
Okay. Well, look, if we have any more news on that, we'll bring that to you. But again, that breaking news coming through to us here is that Daniel Levy, it appears, is in negotiations now to sell almost his 30% stake in the ownership of Spurs for approximately $1 billion to a consortium, including the Hong Kong businessman NG Wing Fei. The consortium is comprised of Asian business tycoons. If we get any more news on it, we'll bring it to you on this show. Johnny, very quickly, we'll go to you. Then we'll go to Dave.
Just very quickly, right? The last thing we want is a fragmented base, because then you've got the 70%.
We're a fragmented fan base.
No, we are a fragmented fan base. But this guy, I've looked at him before, right? When this was rumoured, there's far better owners than a Hong Kong businessman who could get banged up at any moment, like they do in China. Hong Kong being part of it. I just think that this is a move potentially by Daniel to get back. Remember, Daniel was marched out the club.
He was.
Right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
I must say allegedly. We
allegedly, sorry,
yeah.
he was marched out allegedly. So what better way to get your own back than to sell it, your 30% stake, to someone else? Now, the only thing I can think about is whether or not the Lewises have a clause that gives them first option to buy up his 30% stake. Be interesting to see this, but this guy is not your number one guy who you want to be coming in and bringing his money. Let me tell you, this isn't my idea of a one-up owner. People say, be careful what you wish for, because anyone's better than Levy and anyone's better is not the case. That's all I'll say.
Interesting point to me. I was told last year that Lewis and Levy had an agreement that they would never sell separately. Obviously, that's gone out the window.
Yeah.
I don't know
So
whether.
there you go, Lubo.
Yeah.
Breaking news on Last Word on Spurs, as always.
There you go. Don't tell me we don't try and bring the news to you. Okay. Well, look, as soon as we get more, obviously, on that story, we'll let you know, and we'll get the guys' takes on that as well. Dave, let's come around to you. Let's focus it back on transfers, because it feels at the moment Spurs aren't willing to do so. A couple of wingers, if we can just quickly touch upon them. There's been suggestions potentially in these last few days of the window that, despite the earlier part, it seemed unlikely, but City may let Omar Mamouche move on in the final few days of this transfer window. Whilst that door potentially is opening, Tottenham look like they're firmly closing the door on Matisse Tell leaving. Apparently, we understand in regards to Matisse Tell that there is no option of either a loan or a permanent deal. Tottenham unwilling to let the forward go, despite the forward, we understand, being very unhappy under Thomas Frank, feeling that he's not been given a fair opportunity in these last 5, 6, 7, 8 weeks. Dave, your thought on those couple of players as to if you feel that's going to be the definitive act on their future? Can we get Marmouche in? Can we get Tell back to a place where he's happy in the second half of the season if he does remain?
I feel like our name is just thrown in with any player that wants to get out of a top club right now. Look, I'll go back to what I said around the Savinho one in the summer. I never thought the Savinho one was going to happen because they don't want to sell to Tottenham Hotspur. You know, they're a bit sour of the whole Harry Kane sort of debacle that time. And I think it's going to be the same with Marmouche. You know, I don't think he'll end up at Tottenham Hotspur. I just think it's a case where we're just being linked with absolutely everybody right now because of our need for players and stuff like that. But you know, again, I'm not sure why you'd want to come to Tottenham. Don't get me wrong. I think he'd help us. You know, he's a player that I think many Spurs fans would have took here before he signed on with Man City and stuff like that. You know, he's tricky. He'll contribute goals. He'll assist goals and, you know, creativity and that from open play, which is exactly what we're missing right now. But to be honest with you, just don't see him ending up at Tottenham, you know, for the reason I said in the summer. When it comes to Matisse Tell, I'm starting to feel a little bit sorry for the kid. Now, don't get me wrong, you know, I wasn't his greatest fan, you know, coming into the start of this season. You know, I thought in the Super Cup against PSG, I thought he was very, very poor. You know, he came on, showed a bit of a poor attitude, didn't really want to chase around or run around and really sort of dig in and help the team that night. And, you know, I think Thomas Frank also took a disliking to that. He didn't include him in the Champions League squad. You know, then he brought him back in, and at the first chance, he could have took anybody out. He took Matisse Tell back out. And, you know, when it comes to Matisse Tell as well, with some of the stick that he's receiving on social media and stuff, you know, I've seen players before at Tottenham drop their heads, you know, throw the toys out the pram, not want to play. This guy is still, when he's being asked to play, he's still putting in performances, and he's trying. And for me, you know, I'll always root behind a player that you know is, despite everything going against him, is trying to make it right and trying to make amends, and you know, still sort of trying to kick on. And utmost respect to Matisse Tell for that. But to be honest with you, with Frank and Matisse Tell, I'm not sure they're getting on. I don't think they like each other. And I think that, you know, you can read into that in terms of being left out of the Champions League squad. And, you know, the fact that he came off against Bournemouth a couple of weeks ago, even though he's the best player on the pitch, Mawani ended up playing like 90 minutes and he was absolutely atrocious that evening and stuff. So it's clear that they're not getting on. And I can see why Matisse Tell wants to leave. But I think the fact that Tottenham are sort of made a stance a couple of weeks ago that no one's leaving shows to me that they're really struggling to get players in here.
Yeah, I mean, not just on that point, in terms of players potentially coming in, players potentially coming out. Johnny, I just want to steer the show back over to you. Then we've got to go for our first break. I know we are very conscious of time. We are hearing suggestions in these last few hours or so. And again, look, it's not something to worry about for now, but something to worry about the future, about where players' heads are at. We're hearing suggestions that Bayern have Luka Vuskovic on their radar and are closely monitoring his development as long as, or in addition to a number of top clubs in Europe. Now, something worth bearing in mind is that Paul O'Keefe has suggested that he expects Luka Vuskovic to remain at Hamburg next season because there's a good chance that he'll be playing alongside his brother there. So, sad to keep an eye on there is one thing. And also one player Spurs were linked with in these last 24 hours was our Etihad winger, Moussa Diaby. And it's understood now that Inter Milan are in direct talks to sign him. Surprise deal, it's being reported by Fabrizio Romano. Those talks ongoing. And it's understood it's a loan with a buy option clause around 35 million euros. Diaby has already said yes to Inter Milan. The deal now depends on Al Ittihad. Thoughts on those two, Johnny?
I quite like Diaby, if I'm honest. He was good at Villa, but I'm always sceptical of a player that goes out to Saudi at such a young age. I think he's still only about 25, 26. Lots of assists. He's come through the PSG academy. I really like him, but I was worried coming out of that league and coming back to the Premier League. The only one I can think of really is Henderson, who went to Ajax, and that didn't really work out great. And as for Vuskovic, look, his brother had a doping ban for 2 years. And by all rights, it was a disgraceful decision and one which has set the Hamburg fans into making him like a cult hero. He comes back in November. He wants to play with them, and I think the club are very happy with how the loan has gone. It can only be a plus point for him. And as for Bayern Munich, I can't see it happening. Hamburg and Bayern Munich are rivals. I think he would have been indoctrinated into the fact. And let's be serious, the way he's going and on his trajectory, you better come up with a magical number, because Spurs paid nearly £16 million, the most ever for a European centre-back of that age when we signed him, when Fabio signed him. So I can't see it. It's paper talk. The only concern would be, does he really have an affiliation to this club? Because we signed all these years ago, right? Bar a game against Reading where he managed to score a goal again, and look really impressive.
Yep.
He's back out on loan. I'm sure there's a liaison officer and what have you that's keeping tabs with him, but that would be my main concern. But as for the talent, it's going up.
Johnny, do you think we'll see him in a Tottenham shirt, Vuskovic?
Yeah, I do.
As in, what I mean by that is not a friendly one. I mean a competitive one.
No, I think we will see him. I think we will see Vuskovic in a Tottenham shirt when he hits maybe 20 years of age. All this clamour to be 18, it's remarkable, his career. He's not the normal. You got Hoyson, who was playing at centre-back for Bournemouth at 18, has gone out to Real Madrid.
Yeah.
He's got an injury now, but he was playing. These are exceptional players, Hoyson and Vuskovic. And, I think I'm quite happy for him to come back at 20 years of age.
Listen, we are going to go for our first break of the show for our listeners all day. Then we're going to steer over to Lubo to kick us back off on the second half. Thanks to the over 5,500 that are all with us, that are attentively waiting on what is going to happen with Spurs in the window. We're going to hear from Thomas Frank. We're going to close on where we are on the latest end of the transfer market. But just to bring you what's been a bit of breaking news during this show, as we've discussed with Lubo, we've got that news directly for us and brought it to us all and told us his opinion on it. It had to happen when, of course, Lubo was on it. And that's Daniel Levy is trying or is in the process of selling his 30% stake in the football club. And as discussed and mentioned on this show, the interesting thing about this, for those that are unaware of the businessman, Wing Fei, if you do a really quick search on him, he's a town planner and politician, as well as holding the role of CEO at the Map King Group. Now, Map King is the leading provider of digital mapping, geospatial technologies and intelligent city solutions, focusing on the Asia-Pacific region. So we'll see. Experiencing. We'll see if it's be careful what you wish for or if it's potentially worth the wait. But again, 30% of that sale potentially going through. Thanks to the over, like I said, only 5,500 that are with us here on Last Word on Spurs. If you can for us, like, hype, subscribe to the show. That would be greatly appreciated. We're going to turn our attentions to what Thomas Frank did say in his press conference ahead of the Man City game, where he revealed the club try to sign Antoine Semenyo, and he's telling Tottenham fans out there, all the 5,500, 6,000 that are watching this show and the ones that watch it on the playback, the Lewis family are super committed, apparently. Let's quickly hear from what Thomas Frank has made of that, and we'll get the guys' reaction on that. And let's hear from Thomas Frank.
I'm assuming they're all long-term injuries now, I'm thinking, but the one isn't long-term is Mickey van der Ven. What's the latest on him for Sunday, and any other news team-wise?
Mickey is a minor one. It will be touch and go for Sunday. We're hoping. He was on the pitch yesterday, on the pitch today. Hopeful for that, but it's touch and go.
Congratulations. Through to the last 16. Very impressive. Is the message now, because of no playoff, to forget about it and full focus is now on the league?
For me, it's always been full focus on the next game. So it's full focus on Man City on Sunday. We definitely need to build on some good performances. I said not everything been perfect, but now as I calculate the last 10, it's more consistent. It's more we compete better. We are constantly improving, but especially the last 3 games, it's much more over 90 minutes. And I think the 3 performances that's the thing we need to bring into to Sunday and going forward.
In September, you said to me you don't look at the league table till April. But back then, did you imagine that you'd be around 14th?
No, I didn't. I'm very aware, and I think I said that a few times. I'm very aware that you always hope for more. You always in football, small things you can turn and you can get a little momentum, or sometimes you get more. Sometimes for whatever reason you don't get the momentum. Very aware that this season is a season where we are, as always, and we should be for Tottenham, very ambitious. But it is a transitional season. A transitional season where we need to be very ambitious, do as good as we can in every single competition, and I definitely expected and hoped and believed that we would be higher, but I also think it's fair to say some of the margins, the bits, we could easily like this have had 6 points more in a completely different talk. Unfortunately, we haven't, and it is what it is, and we need to keep going.
Deadline day Monday, you've had so many injuries. Is it about the right person now and also going forward? We know there's players who are offered to clubs. We understand Raheem Sterling is not one on the list, but because you look for the future as well as the now, is there maybe a possibility there might not be any new arrivals on Monday?
I said it, the club worked relentless to try to do the best they can to improve the squad, especially Johan, Fabio and Vinay, and of course all the people behind them. I mean it, we can't be too obsessed with short-term fix that not helping on the long term, because if we don't do that, we will not, all the hard work we put in now can be limited for the future. And that's not that we want badly short-term success as well. I can promise that the Lewis family is super committed to this project. They want to do everything, and I will go against my rule, hopefully only once. That there's no doubt, it's clear that the club wants to sign Semenyo. They did everything. I think that's a clear signal that the Lewis family is very committed. That's a big signing with finances and all that. So it's aligned, but that's the quality players we are looking for to improve the squad. And if we can't find that, then it's definitely better to take the right decision. It's not the same that we're just getting quality players going forward, because we all know it's not that easy. And I'm sure if we're not, for whatever reason, able to get another player in or players in this window, then for the summer it is a big summer ahead, and I'm not in doubt we'll see big improvements there.
So yeah, that's Thomas Frank there. You think the way he's talking, he's going to be here for 10 years. Not to worry, everyone, by the way. Don't get all terrified. I thought Liv was going to collapse there when I said that. Dave, let me start with you. Look, I'll be honest with you. How can Thomas Frank sit in that press conference and talk about big commitment from the Lewis family when they've done pretty much nothing to help him or Spurs' squad this month. I just find this whole situation so embarrassing. You know, the standards I keep talking about being so lowered at this football club beyond even my understanding. You know, we're trying now. Now we've come to a point now. We're not about signing players. We're trying now, so we should get applauded for trying. I mean, Dave, what is going on here? What is going on? I mean, transitional season. But you can understand, Dave, couldn't you, why he's not been sacked yet? Because he keeps saying it on every press conference. We're in such alignment across the whole group. Well, they're not going to sack him, are they? Because they all seem clearly in alignment for us to be mid to low standard. Tell me I'm wrong, Dave.
I mean, look, I think ever since this guy has come in and every time he does a press conference, he lowers the standards of this football club further and further. You know, he's talking about a transitional season. We're off the back of winning Europa League. What other club in the world of football has a transitional season off the back of winning, you know, a major, one of the big European
Just won a trophy. And we're back to
it's
transitional.
absolutely madness. And by the way, you know, this is a guy that's taken all the plaudits for the Champions League run, but yeah, also said we're not a Champions League team, not a Champions League squad, and we're in it by default, this, that, and the other. But look, when it comes to the transfer window, I sort of do believe him. I do believe that we're out there putting, you know, talking to agents, talking to players. But if they don't want to come, what can we do? Why would they want to come? Johan Lang, since he's been over transfer windows, and I remember saying this last year underneath Ange Postecoglou, he's massively failed in terms of the transfer windows. You look at Aston Villa, since they've got rid of him, look at the players they're signing, look at the trajectory they're on.
Totally agree.
It was only 2019 they were in the Championship and we were in the Champions League final. Look at the contrast, you know, of the two different, where the clubs are today. It's absolutely insanity, you know. And with Johan Lang, all he's been able to do is bring in young, promising players. He hasn't actually been able to bring in that finished article, that finished product. And that's a huge failure on his behalf. And that's probably one of the reasons why Aston Villa got rid of him, because with Unai Emery, they needed a better standard player if they wanted to go and compete and challenge and stuff like that. So that's one reason why they got rid of him. So he doesn't have the pull or the know-how to be able to bring these players in. He also probably doesn't have the contacts that Paratici has to be able to even get in the rooms to try and bring in some of the caliber of players. Then you look at Thomas Frank. We badly need forward players. If you're a forward player, why would you want to come and play under this guy, looking at the troubles that every other forward player has had underneath him this year, and looking at the two we brought in the summer? You got one in Matisse Tell and one in Colin Mawani, and both of them want out. You know, because if you're a forward player, he's not going to enhance your career. He's not going to bring more assists or more goals to your game, and your reputation is likely going to tail off. You know, then you also look at the ambition of the football club. You can't guarantee with these players. You can't shine trophies in front of them, or at least tell them you have the ambition to go and win trophies, because at the end of the day, they're just not going to believe you. You know, actions speak louder than words. We hear a lot of words from Tottenham on the board, but we never actually see any actions. And, you know, and if we feel that as fans, you can best believe that's well known within football, well known within footballing circles and everything else, to the point now where we're just one big laughing stock. We're just one big joke to the media, to pundits, to players, to managers, to agents. And we are in free fall right now. What player is going to want to sign their name onto this? So I've no doubt the club are trying, but we just do not have the pull. Thomas Frank isn't a guy that people, where players get their agents on the phone and say, get me in there, I want to go and play for this guy. You know, you look at the guys ahead of him in directors of football, you know, Johan Lang, zero pull. And then when you listen to Paul O'Keefe here during the week, which, by the way, was a brilliant podcast, Ricky, so credit to you and the boys. But, you know, he was saying, you know, they're afraid to pull the trigger on Thomas Frank because they're afraid to go down an interim route. So they're not keeping him here because they believe in him and they want to back the guy. They're afraid to make a change, which goes to show you've got Lewis family wet in the years. They're used to walking around Tottenham behind their daddy and behind Daniel Levy making all the bad decisions, and they can walk around and be nicety. They don't have it in them now to be able to make cutthroat decisions in a cutthroat industry at the top level. That's why Johan Lang and Vinay are still here, even though they've made a massive mess. You know, they were the ones that were behind Thomas Frank, like Paul O'Keefe said. I'm not being funny, but their job is to predict outcomes. You know, that they're bringing Thomas Frank because they believe he's going to do this. Well, he's spectacularly failed. And they spectacularly failed in the transfer windows to really sort of help this guy. But yet none of them have been sacked. None of them have been held accountable. So what you've actually got is just a group of people that don't know what they're doing, don't have the balls to make any sort of decisions to sort it out. And they're all just holding on to each other.
They're just passing the buzzer along.
Exactly. Because if they sack Thomas Frank, it's a massive admission of failure. And they're going to get even more heat. And once Frank is out the way, where's all the attention going to go to? Straight to them. So that's why he's sort of being held in a job right now. And also, when you look at other clubs that have sacked the manager, Chelsea, they went and got a guy within their footballing structure. You know, you look at Man United, they brought in Carrick. There are lots of other people they can rely on. Real Madrid, Xavi Alonso brought in the guy from the under-21s. They also had other people around there we can rely on. If we make a change, who have we realistically got that's been in the game over the last couple of years to actually come in and try and drive this forward? We don't. So we're up a creek right now without any paddles. We are just floating aimlessly. And the big problem is you've got no one upstairs. At the end of the day, the Lewis family, they should be the ones that setting the directive of this football club. They should have came in and said, this is the style we want to play, which then makes the director of football's job easier because he knows what sort of players we're after and what manager we need to be able to match that up. But right now, the Lewis family are just sitting there protecting their investment or their inheritance from their daddy. That's why they audited Joe Lewis, football accounts when they walked in, Daniel Levy's dealings when they walked in here, so that they could see if there's anything dodgy, so they could force them into maybe selling these shares so that then eventually they can go and sell the football club and they can all take their piece of the pie and they can all move on. But right now, you've got no one that wants to make a decision. And that's the big scary thing in this football club. No one is steering this ship.
Yeah, I agree. Look, in the latter part of that press conference, Frank said that Mickey van der Ven has a minor injury and he's touch and go for Sunday. So that's one to keep an eye on as to whether Mickey will be fit for the game. He says Dominic Solanke is still building, but he's now in a position where he's ready to start football matches. He said on the side's form, it's not been perfect, but the past 10 games has been much more consistent. We've competed better, especially over the full 90 minutes. Added it's a transitional season, as we touched upon there, and he admitted he expected us to be much higher in the league. As to whether more business will be happening before Monday's deadline, he said, if we are unable to get players in, then it'll be a big summer ahead. I mean, again, the way he's talking...
Keep down the road, Ricky. Keep kicking the can down the road, yeah?
Yeah. Johnny, what's your thoughts on Sunday, the Man City game? Have you got any conflict for you? Because I know some fans are concerned it might be helping Arsenal out, but we've got our own problems here. You know, we're winless since the start of 2026 in the Premier League.
My club, my only club, well, in the Premier League, it's Tottenham Hotspur. First and foremost, I need us to win. So, I want us to beat Man City, and then I want us to beat Arsenal, first and foremost. Will I cry or be upset if we lose to Manchester City? It will be an easier pill to swallow than drawing with Burnley and losing to West Ham. I can tell you that much, right? Those were pills that got stuck in my throat. And I just think that I go with no expectations, even though we've got a great history. I think our injury list is absolutely ridiculous. It really is. And with Manchester City bringing in Semenyo and even more importantly, Mark Gahey at the back, I think they'll be really difficult. Doku has done his calf muscle again, so he's going to be missing, and Rodri's not quite back on, on his game. Yeah, it's going to be a hard game, but Spurs being Spursy, you could just see them somehow pulling it out. I think the biggest question, I don't expect to win, right? I'll be honest with you. My score prediction, you'll know that.
Yeah.
But I think the question is, how many Spurs fans are hoping we lose so Thomas Frank gets the sack, right? More so than winning into, listen, I'm not going to name names, but there are people who will look incredibly happy when we were dropping points and, because they want to be right and they want Thomas Frank out the club. I don't care whether I dislike the manager, dislike a player. All I want every single game is for my club or our club to win football games and progress up the table. That's it.
And we're in this precarious position, Lubo, where can't we really afford to keep losing football matches? Because West Ham have picked up points in the last couple of weeks. I think they've trimmed the gap. It was from 13 now. Was it now? Forgive me. It's down to, what is it now? It's down to, 8 points now? So, and our fixtures to come in February. We know they're not going to be easy. For you, Lubo, how are you approaching this game against City? And is it just so typical Tottenham that the bloke that was in having an Arsenal cut with him a few months ago, we yet to win a game in 2.5 months, probably goes and wins this game against Man City, which might be a confliction for some. How do you see it from your perspective?
I just want the Spurs to win. Don't see it. I think they'll be too strong for us. Listen, I to an extent, I do feel sorry for Frank. He's had a horrendous injury list. I know Ange did last year as well, but for me, and Ange played suicide football, so it was that's sort of my energy and focus more than anything else.
But would you say this is taking your energy and focus away as well, though, Lubo? Would you say the brand of football under Frank's also taking your energy and focus away?
It's been difficult to watch. He hasn't had Solanke. Odebear has only just started coming into his own. I think, Dave, that Frank has improved him. He hasn't improved too many players, but he has improved Odebear. We need players. That's the problem. We haven't got enough quality in the squad. I mean, we've got so many injuries. We're getting 4 back, I think, from the week who are ineligible. We're getting Dragerson, Tell, Gallagher, and Basuma back.
Yep.
If Mickey's not 100%, I don't think they'll risk him. I think I heard it was a hamstring, so a slight hamstring niggle. I can't see them risking that. He's done well to get to get up to end of Jan without any hamstring injuries this season. It's been his best season, best hamstring injury free season for about 3 or 4 years.
Until now, I agree. Yep. Until
now, listen, that they're in a little bit of form. We've had 2 wins and a draw. Should have beaten Burnley.
Yeah.
Hopefully they're on the up. Hopefully Heitinger joining has helped change the tactics a fraction, and we're becoming a little bit more proactive, a little bit more progressive in the football, and we'll give City a game. I see them losing by the odd goal, but for me, I don't understand why people would want City to win, because they don't want Arsenal to win the league. We've got bigger problems with 3 wins in 16.
Yeah, and we're not.
We've gone from 3rd to 4th.
Yeah, and also we're not match day 37, Lubo. We're match day. What are we going to be coming up? Forgive me. We're match day 24 coming up. So we're nowhere near the end of the season, right, Lubo?
Yeah. No one. Listen, Arsenal should win it, but knowing them, they'll find a way to lose it, and City will come along. But let's see Spurs get 3 points on Sunday. That's all I'm interested in.
Agreed. Before I go around to you guys for one more round the table conversation, just very quickly for those that are not aware of it, Change for Spurs are having another protest ahead of the game on Sunday. This is going to start before kickoff on or near the south stand outside that area. It's then going to continue during the game. And then there is a planned walkout, just so you guys are aware. There's further information on the affiliated handles with Change for Spurs. So if you go over to their respective channels, obviously you can find more information on that ahead of Sunday, should you wish to attend. Right. Listen, we know it's been a difficult season, right? I mean, it feels at the moment that you could argue with Frank that given he steered Tottenham through to this next round of the Champions League, where we know Spurs are going to face one of 4 opponents that will be confirmed, of course, once we've had the playoffs out the way, that you feel at the moment, Dave, to come over to you to look to kind of summarise and close the show ahead of City, that Frank's going to be given a degree of time here, isn't he? Because you'd argue that last season with Ange, for example, he had Tottenham qualified at this stage for that next round of the Europa League, and that was the thing at the moment the club was really, you feel, holding on to, clinging on to. When there's a lot of people calling for Ange Postecoglou's head, they would say, well, look, we've got in the Europa League. There's a good opportunity of winning that. Players are still playing for the manager. And just to say this, I think really importantly, whilst like in any squad, Dave, there are players that are disenchanted with the manager, I think what we can see at the moment, again, non-biased aside, whether you like Frank or you dislike Frank, it feels at the moment, Dave, the majority of players are still on board. We've seen that against Dortmund. We saw that in big degrees against Burnley, given the nature of the first half, and we should have already got the game done. And we definitely saw that against Frankfurt. So I just wondered, Dave, do you think he'll be given that time to see how this does play out now? Because we were almost operate on a kind of game-by-game basis. I mean, do you feel that with that City game, we're not going to be back here again to about Frank's future just after that one, are we? Do you think it's going to be quieting down now for a while, or is it difficult to know with Tottenham?
I think he'll certainly see out the rest of the Champions League campaign for as long as he remains in it, to be honest with you. I think it would have been the same for Ange last year.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to be the same for Thomas Frank this year. And I think, many fans just have to sort of get with that fact. We were told that the club are very reluctant to make a change. It seems like he's still got the majority of the dressing room with him. I do think there's players that certainly aren't having him, but he's got the majority of the dressing room with him. And while you've got that, you still have a chance. But also, when you look at the league table, as much as we're only 8 points off the bottom, we're also only 6 points off seventh. And I do think I do think this month is certainly make or break for Tottenham Hotspur in terms of what we can get out of it, whether we can make a push and salvage a Europa League or Conference League sort of position, or whether we're firmly in a relegation scrap. This month will certainly tell us. But I do think Frank will certainly get, the last 16 of the Champions League. At the end of the day, as much as the fixtures were kind to us the way they were rolled out and some of the teams we drew, you still got to go out and win them games. And, he's done that to a large degree. So I think he's earned the right to take us in the, in the round of the last 16. And I think, that's what the plan is by the looks of it. Because to be brutally honest, it would have been so easy for the club to sack him after West Ham. It was actually harder for them to keep hold of him and, sort of see him through that period than it was to sack him. It would have been a very popular decision after West Ham game to sort of sack him. So it does look like he is going to be here till the end of the season or towards the end of the season. And then once we're out of European football, if we've got nothing really left to play for in the league, then I think you'll see an interim between then and the end of the season. So Frank still has a bit of time to try and turn it around. But I do think this next month is absolutely crucial for him. Do I believe he's going to be here long term after the summer? No, I don't. You've got a massive managerial merry-go-round in the summer. And I think Spurs will look to make a change then.
Yeah. Johnny Foley, who's a regular viewer listener, asked, does Dave ever smile or laugh? He does probably, Dave, just away from Tottenham. Is that fair? Because I've seen you smile before, but it's not when Tottenham are on.
No, in general, I'm a sort of happy-go-lucky sort of guy, laughing and smiling and joking. It's just this club.
Then I bring you on here.
This club just stresses me out, just when you think at the start of every season you go and you're like, oh, nice one, everything's positive. And then very quickly you just back down into the doldrums. And I'm not being funny, but I've been doing this, last 4 years, and it just seems like every year at the same point, you end up having the same conversations about the football club because the same things just keep happening. Yep. And at some point, it just beats you down. It sort of,
100%.
Beats you up a little bit. And you got to remember, we've got, people on the panel, but also hundreds of thousands of people at home across socials also wanting to talk to you about the club and everything else. And, as it just becomes draining at some point. Like at some point, you're just squeezing for an ounce of positivity. But I'm not worrying. I can't sit here and fake it. I'm not going to sit here and sell dreams. I'm just.
That's why we love you, mate. That's why we love you on this show. I always say it's why we love you on the show, mate. Keep being you. You're amazing. You're real. You are as it is in all real format, Dave. So we thank you so much. Make sure, Dave, Irish Hotspur, still going after every game, despite how painful it is, Dave. Right? You're still there, as painful as it is, Dave.
Well, yeah, despite my loyalty being questioned by the last two managers and stuff like that, I still turn up every single game, hoping today's the day we're going to turn the corner.
Yeah, and they'll keep on hoping it's going to turn the corner. Dave, you're a star.
And the players and managers can keep questioning my loyalty, but I'm still going to turn up whether they like it or not.
Dave, all you got to do, mate, is just tune in to Women's Brazilian Beach volleyball, mate. That will put a smile on your face, right? Forget about Spurs. When the going gets tough, Brazilian women's beach volleyball, mate, always put a smile on your face.
You can always trust Johnny to make you feel better, Dave. Don't worry about it. We're going to close with Johnny in a second. We're going to go to Lubo next before we close. Lubo, we've got some Daniel Levy news there in the show. It had to happen when you're on. It always has to happen when you're on. Lubo, you will be with us on deadline day at different times of the day. What's your mood, Lubo, going into City now and the deadline? Do you just feel like we need a signing if it's good enough to just get the mood up a little bit? I keep saying this, maybe one player comes in, lifts the mood of the fans and the players and the supporters and the manager. I mean, where are you at?
I think it doesn't matter what the cost is. It can be 5 million, it can be 60, 70 million. As long as the player's right for Spurs, as long as he's going to make a difference.
100%.
Between now and the last week of May, that's for me, that's the only important thing. I don't see us getting more than one. Probably the problem we've got is that January's been horrendous for injuries. We've lost Bergvall, Bentancur, Davis, Richarlison,
Mental.
Toro,
Crazy.
Van der Ven.
And Mickey's got a knock now. Crazy. I'm
sure.
This is what it goes back to, Lubo, isn't it? When Frank sits there and says that we're in alignment and we're trying, you think Is that the problem, Lubo? It's just, it feels across the football club. It just feels very mid-table, bottom to mid-table mentality across the club, isn't it? That's what it feels like.
What you need, and it's going to be this way because we're drifting. What you need is new owners that are going to come in and go, well, bang, we're back, we're competing, we're coming in we're here to win, and to lift the club in terms of the way the club's perceived. At the moment, it's dull, it's boring, it's heading, it's going the wrong way. It's been going, for me, it's been going the wrong way since Venables left in '93.
Bloody hell.
So, and it needs a lift desperately.
Tell you what, if it's been since '93, God, some people need a lift, some people need an injection. God help them.
Now, anyone in the chat, if Lubo's saying it's
93, it says, can I just say, can you imagine if this was around in 1993 YouTube? We'd all be dead. I mean,
oh my God, no.
Lubo would say, Lubo would be a skeleton. Could you imagine him every week on Enoch and Levy? And my God, since 93. Lubo, you're a star. I say get some rest, but this man doesn't sleep. You know, when those factor files behind him. Lubo, look forward to see you on deadline day where who knows what this club's going to do, but we'll be with you and we'll see you on there, mate. Thank you so much for your time. And let's look forward to the next time, mate. You're a diamond. Thank you. John, let's close with you. Like I say, it's crazy time, right? Joy, it's a crazy time supporting this football club. And I will go back to this point. I think maybe that some watch this show that they're not Tottenham fans. They might think, God, those guys are so self-entitled. What are they expecting to win the league? No. I just want to see us back competing. Is it that bad to just want us to see us competing? That's all I want, is that feeling where you're going into every week, you're actually looking forward to the games rather than dreading it. And you just feel that there's a firm alignment as a fan that across the board, everyone wants the best for this football club. And right now, I don't know about you, or I just don't feel we're all on the same page. We're clearly not on the same page yet. I don't feel the fans believe that. The fans don't believe that. The manager can say what he wants in press conferences, but there's just not a feeling right now that we all actually want to see this club go to that next level. Because right now, the level is screaming of mid-table mentality.
Listen, I think 2019 Champions League final gave us a false sense of where we were, to be honest with you. I'm sure you'll agree, Jay. It definitely isn't here. You know, you're right about that. Maybe those Pochettino years did, to some degree, make us think that we were bigger than what they are. But at the same time, I'm sure you agree, Johnny. We aren't a 14th place team, are we? No, we're not that. But I would say that opportunity in 2019, when we were sat at the pinnacle of football, where we were a draw, where we had the opportunity to ring up a player, a top player, and have that draw to get that player in. Poch said so himself. I've got a beautiful house, but I need some new furniture. And unfortunately, the ball didn't that new furniture. And like I said before, I feel like I'm on a toboggan, whatever, going downhill a mountain in the snow, and there ain't no stopping me on that downward slide. But we have false expectations. But going back to Lubo's 93, in the 90s, if we're going to talk about that, what I would say is we were a happy fan base, even though we weren't winning all the time, right?
The Martin years.
The fan base wasn't as divided. Yeah, we all known about the player we liked and didn't like, what have you.
Yeah.
But this is what we're hearing now is a toxic mess where we've let it slip, whether it's Daniel, whether it's the board, whoever it is responsible right now. It's going to be a tough fight to get back to a place where the fan base feels like, well, this is where we should be. And 14th isn't where we should be. But, winning the Champions League isn't either, right now. Great. But, let's have a happy medium. And I think you can't scream about ambition, but deliver nothing.
Got to show it.
Hollow.
It's got to show us something. Yeah, totally agree. Guys, thank you for the latest therapy session. You all are free to go and you are allowed to leave your rooms until the next time, which we'll see you all.
Predictions?
Oh, my God. Dave, you can kick us off. Just don't kick yourself out of here. Go on, Dave, what are you going to go for? Score prediction.
Do you know what? We always come into Man City in absolute turbulence, injury problems, everything else. but I've seen a centre-back partnership of Ben Davies and Emerson Royale being able to pick up a point. So do you know what? I'm going to believe. So here's your smile to the guy out there that says, I don't smile. Do you know what? I'm going to go 2-1 Tottenham.
There's a Kodak moment for you. Get that clip, Dave. Thank you so much. Luba, let's come to you. Get a score prediction. May I just remind you, we've not, I think, won in the Premier League in the last 2.5 months, and since then you've got the manager pictured in an Arsenal Cup. So you just know Spurs are going to beat Man City now. It's just such a Tottenham thing to do. Luba, what are you going for?
2-1 City.
Okay.
I think it'll be tight. I think we'll play well.
Yeah.
But I think they'll just have too much.
Yeah, I do agree. I think also will be 2-1 City, but I think we'll put up a fight. John, what are you going for, Johnny?
Well, if Mickey doesn't play, we could be more open than Bonnie Blue. So I'm going to go 3-1 for. I'm going to go 3-1 Man City.
Do fear for our listeners of where they're going to after Johnny's shows on here. You have to go over to ITV4 or wherever they go to on those days for those kind of programs. John, you've been a star. Thank you so much. Lubo, you've been a star. Dave, thank you so much. Guys, thanks to the over nearly 9,500, 10,000 that have been watching us live here as we are trying to steer you through to City and where Spurs are heading during this transfer window. Daniel Levy's looking to sell that 30% share. Tottenham, meanwhile, was looking to bring a player in. Make sure you follow Johnny over at JohnnyH3232 on the Insta, Talking Tottenham 882. Football Link's very, very own, of course, with Lubo over at the Spurs 5 and Dave over at the Irish Hotspur. Guys, thank you so much for incredible support. Let's see what comes next in the installment of Tottenham. From Johnny, from Lubo, from Dave, from me. We've been the last one on Spurs. Thank you for all your incredible support. And as always, come on you Spurs.